Your Unit 4 consultation assessment requires you to submit a recorded video of yourself completing a client consultation, as well as a completed copy of your client consultation form. So when choosing your client, it needs to be a real person, it needs to be somebody who genuinely could use your advice and are looking at joining a gym. However, you do not necessarily need to be working in a gym yet to actually complete this assessment. The individual needs to be apparently healthy with no medical conditions, which would be considered outside of a gym instructor's or a personal trainer's scope of practice. And you'll confirm that during the consultation by completing a physical activity readiness questionnaire, so a PARQ, and a health commitment statement, a HCS, which we'll look at briefly. Your assessor will observe you completing your consultation. It could be approximately 10 minutes. If it's a little bit over, don't worry too much. It could even be 15 minutes. That's absolutely fine. The main thing is that you're demonstrating the appropriate knowledge, skills, and behaviours during this assessment. So during the assessment, there's a list of bullet points here that we'll be expecting you to do. So you prepare a consultation environment that encourages open communication. You'll use appropriate communication methods, techniques, and skills to greet your client, build rapport, and gather valuable, open, and honest information. You'll explain your role and the role of other relevant professionals if needed and when required. You'll complete the appropriate health screening measurements that we just mentioned. You'll review your client's goals, their readiness to exercise, their motivators, and their barriers. You'll identify the appropriate strategies to address these barriers and maximize their motivators. You'll develop and agree basic SMART goals, and you'll identify the appropriate review points for those goals as well. During this consultation, you must complete at least 2 client-appropriate health screening measurements. However, measurements such as body weight, height, and therefore BMI is appropriate and can be classed as one assessment. So we also recommend that at the very least you also complete a resting heart rate, as that will be a good indicator of most people's health. So you can do their height and weight, which equates to their BMI, and then their resting heart rate, which you can do either manually on your client's wrist. You can do it on them, or they can measure their own. The awarding organisation do request that you don't use a smartwatch to complete that part of the assessment, that you manually measure their resting heart rate. However, you could also measure things like their body composition. So if you've got any bioelectrical impedance, weighing scales, or body composition equipment, then you could do that. Or if you also have a blood pressure monitor, then again, you could use those. But at the very least, you need to do 2. So height and weight, and calculate BMI would be 1, and resting heart rate can be another. When completing the assessment, make sure you perform it in a quiet, private setting and set up the furniture to promote an effective communication style. So it doesn't need to be done in an office or an actual consultation room. If you're doing this at home, then normally kitchen is an appropriate environment. However, if you do have access to a gym, speak to the gym, see if you can use their consultation room. It will be an ideal environment, and it almost set the setting for you and your client as well. When you're doing the recording, please record it in one continuous video. There should be no evidence of editing or stopping. You need to set the room up and the video camera so you and your client will always be on view. So if you are going to be measuring their height, measuring their weight, etc., make sure that wherever you've placed the weighing scales or the tape measures, you and your client don't wander off screen and then come back on. We should be able to see the whole of the room. We do recommend that you edit your camera settings. So if you can, on your smartphones, there's normally a setting where you can put it on the lowest resolution. It doesn't dramatically change the quality. You can still see things and hear things absolutely fine, but it drastically minimizes the size of your recording and will make it easier for you to upload your file. During the conversation, the camera should be able to see your upper body. Well, hopefully we're going to see the whole room, so that's a bit of a moot point. And then during any testing, ensure you and your client do not go off the screen, and ensure you and your client can always be heard. To complete the consultation, you will need to meet and greet your client, so be friendly and welcoming. Verbally gather their consent for filming, so just let them know that you're filming the consultation. Sit down and explain the aims and content of the consultation, so what you're going to do, why you're going to do it, and what the aims are. So you're going to gather some information, try and agree what their goals will be, and then off the back of that, you'll be able to write a program for them. You'll then complete the health commitment statement and the physical activity readiness questionnaire that is available in your, consultation paperwork. You'll then continue with the client consultation, maintaining good communication, but also making notes and completing the consultation paperwork where required. As you complete any test results, make sure that you record them on the paperwork provided and provide your client with feedback on what those results mean. So if you do calculate somebody's BMI and it's 23, for example, let them know whether that means they are underweight, they're ideal, they're overweight, they're obese, etc. If you measure their resting heart rate, then what does that heart rate mean? They want that feedback. It's up to you when you give that feedback. Either you can do it straight after the test, so you know why you've done it and what it means, or you might want to do it at the end to kind of summarize what you've done that day. And then you also need to make sure you agree and record your SMART goals. Towards the end, you need to finish the consultation with an overview of the information you've gathered and the test results, and then agree the next steps. The next steps would be that an effective program will be written for them based on the information gathered. When you are doing this assessment, you are given a blank consultation form, which you can download in Word format, but you are also given a completed consultation form for you to look at as an example. So I'm just going to go through that as a quick example. So you can see you get a health commitment statement, and in the version you are given as well, you are given a physical activity readiness questionnaire as well. So you do 2 forms. Both of them are valid. Some organizations only use one. For good practice, we're just asking you to use both, so you are familiar with both forms. Once you've completed both of those forms, you'll need to gather your client's name, their date of birth, male or female. You need to measure their height and weight. If you're calculating their BMI, make sure you gather their height in meters, their weight in kilograms, and then from that you should be able to calculate their BMI. And then any other assessments, as a minimum, we would recommend resting heart rate, but there may be other measurements that you want to record as well. You then need to go through the questions listed. So what is their lifestyle? What's their occupation and their hobbies? So in particular, what's the job? How physically active is it? Is it sedentary? What times do they work? How many days a week? Is it shifts? What do they do in the spare time? Do they have any family, any dependents, whether it's kids or elderly family members? Any hobbies that they have? Find out what they want to achieve. But then in the motivators a bit further down, just find out why they want to achieve that. So if someone says their overarching goal is to lose a stone, for example, just find out exactly what their motivation is for wanting to lose that stone. Now, is it to go to a wedding next year, to go on holiday? Is it for a health reason? And it's just sometimes useful to know, because there could be several reasons. It could be that they want to be healthier, they want to be fitter, but they're also going on a holiday, for example, and that can just help you kind of pick out little motivators and goals and time scales for people as well. Ask them what they like and don't like, as that can be quite indicative of what you might or might not put in their program. Ask them what their barriers are. So again, everyone's got a barrier, whether it's time, money, kids, motivation, confidence, anxieties, etc. But once you've figured out what these barriers are and what's actually motivating them to achieve their goal, you need to try and use that motivation as well as suggest ways of overcoming the barriers. So if somebody has got a time issue, then you might need to start talking about how you're going to plan in their diary specific dates and times of when they're going to go to the gym. They're not just going to see if it happens, they're going to specifically factor time in. It might be that they need to take their training gear to the work with them, so when they're driving home past the gym, they can stop in. It might be that they train at lunchtime rather than after work. If it's confidence or motivation or anxieties, could they go at quieter times of the day when it's not as busy? If it's motivation, is it an element of going with a friend or doing some classes as well, so they're more likely to attend, etc. So whatever these barriers are, we can't just accept them. We need to try and think of ways of working around them. And likewise with the motivators, try and use them to set time scales and time frames for them to work towards. Once you've completed that, there's also a opportunity for you to, I believe on the other form, might have been updated a little bit now. Yes, there's an opportunity for you to gather your clients a brief summary of their diet. So when you're talking to someone about their diet, you want to talk about, do they have breakfast, lunch and tea, or whatever you want to call those meals? Are they homemade or are they processed? What do they snack on in between? Do they eat fruit and veg? And if so, how many portions a day? Do they drink water? If so, how much? And do they drink caffeine, alcohol, etc.? By asking those questions, you're kind of opening up a dialogue with your client about not only their lifestyle, their working habits, their training habits, but also their diet. And that means then when you come to their SMART goals, you'll have several areas to discuss. And a good way to do this is just to ask them. So say, what part of your lifestyle do you need to change for you to achieve this goal? Do you need to look at what you're doing in your spare time? Are you quite sedentary and you could be going out for a walk? So could you set a goal of going for a walk every other day for the first 4 weeks? Is it a nutrition goal? So they're not having breakfast and they feel and you feel that will be useful. So you will set a goal for having breakfast. There is some e-learning and correlating resources to support you on the SMART goals, but that's where the conversation should be had. And then in particular with SMART goals, make sure that they're very specific and that they always have a time frame on. So there should always be a phrase where it says in the next so many weeks. Short-term goals will be up to 4 weeks. So it could be 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, or 4 weeks. Medium-term goals should be anything from 4 to 8. And then long-term goals can be anything from 8+. Once you've set those SMART goals, you then just need to say how and when they'll be reviewed. So if it's something like, are they attending the gym? Hopefully you can check their gym attendance that they've been coming. If it's something like having breakfast, then it might just be having a conversation about that. But it should be quite clear how and what you might be reviewing for that assessment. So when doing your consultation, I wouldn't try and type all this level of detail up. I would print this document off, print a blank document off, and make notes as you go. So just scribble some notes down on the blank version. Once you've completed your consultation, you can then type your notes up in lots of detail. So when you then submit your assessments, you're submitting a good video consultation where you're demonstrating your communication skills and being able to maintain that conversation with your client, but you're also submitting a well-detailed consultation form as well. And then the last document to look at will just be the marking criteria. So this is what your assessor will assess you on once you've submitted these. So we break them into Section A, Section B, and Section C. Section A, have you presented yourself to the customers, including meeting and greeting politely and positively? Have you spoken to customers clearly and put them at ease? Have you explored how customers are feeling where appropriate? Have you shown customers respect at all times? And have you used the appropriate non-verbal communication skills? So hopefully you're just meeting and greeting the client in a positive way, sitting them down, explaining what you're about to do, asking if they've got any concerns, any questions, and if they do, that you answer those, and you do that respectfully. For Section B, you need to prepare a positive consultation, use open questions, explain your role and how you're going to gather information, and off the back of this, write them a program. Use follow-up questions. Once you've asked them one question and they responded, try and build on that and build rapport, show an interest. Provide appropriate advice and guidance where required. Identify when to signpost the client. So if you do have any concerns, whether it's maybe around, if they say something like stop smoking, stopping smoking is a very difficult thing to do. You might be that you signpost them to a stop smoking cessation clinic. If there's any kind of dietary concerns, you might refer them back to a GP or a nutritionist, etc. But hopefully if this person's relatively healthy, there shouldn't be any need to signpost or refer, hopefully. You need to check their client's readiness. You don't normally ask that. It is in the questionnaire. So the question that you have is, oh no, sorry, my mistake. Just that they're ready and they're okay to participate in this. That's fine. I'm thinking level 3 there. You identify their barriers, identify their goals, set some SMART goals. Off the SMART goals, you'll agree the appropriate review points and that you record all that information appropriately. And then Section C, you've selected measurements that are suitable and relevant. So this is all around health screening measurements. You've selected measurements that are suitable and relevant for your client's needs. You've followed the established protocols to safely, effectively, and accurately carry out the measurements, and you've recorded those measurements. So if you are doing height, weight, and BMI, make sure that you record them in the appropriate units, so meters and kilograms, and make sure that you then calculate your client's BMI correctly, and then you give it an outcome. So are they underweight, ideal weight, overweight, or obese? And similarly, you do something like that for your resting heart rate as a minimum. If you want to do any more, then that's fine as well. As your assessor fills these out, they will be ticking them, fill them out either with a tick. Tick means that you're competent. A bullet point, which means that you are competent, but there is some feedback for you. A cross would mean that it's a refer, that you haven't shown a level of competence in that criteria. If you get a refer, it would mean that you need to resubmit your, it could be the paperwork, for example, if you don't record the measurements correctly. So it might be that you perform everything correctly, but you might not record the measurements. You might need to just resubmit the paperwork. Or if it's something such as prepared a positive consultation environment, you may need to submit the consultation video and the paperwork. And then finally, if your assessor puts a Q, that means they will have a question. So they will contact you after you've submitted your work, let you know that they have a question about something that they've submitted, arrange a phone call or a webinar with yourself. They will then ask you the question and let you know kind of the impact, because generally speaking, if you answer the question correct, that question will then go to a bullet point and it's just a bit of feedback for you to consider. However, if they ask you a question and you don't answer it correctly, then more than likely it will end up being a cross, and that will then result in the assessment being a referral. So quite often a question can come around where they may have seen you demonstrate a competent level of knowledge and skills in one area, but then maybe contradict it in another, or you may have kind of missaid something in your consultation and they just want to clarify that you definitely do understand it. So normally it is a bit of just an error in the communication. However, it's important that you're aware if there is a question, it can be then turned into either a cross or a bullet point, depending on how you answer it. And then from there, they will mark each section off as either a pass or a refer, and then the whole assessment as a whole as a pass or a refer. And then in the second stage, here's where they write their feedback. So everything that they've seen or marked, any positives or critical feedback to provide for you will be written in that box, as well as any video feedback that they might prepare for you as well.